Bethesda over the years has sadly lost what once made it so special and unforgettable. What made Skyrim into the masterpiece that it is. What made the Fallout franchise so unforgettable and replayable. And now, all we're getting is Starfield. Bethesda is slowly dying, and everyone knows it. Well, honestly, that's probably the most nicest way I could put this, because everyone watching this knows the reality is much, much, much worse than that. That not only is Bethesda dying, but there's pretty much no hopes for the future at this point. Now, granted, I would absolutely just lose it if Bethesda came out one day and magically just accidentally created another Skyrim level of game that just completely sweeps for them for the next 15 years. That would be hilarious, but let's be real, that's probably not happening. I'm pretty sure their attempt at doing that, by the way, was Starfield. And you don't need to tell you how absolutely disgustingly poor Starfield is from every perspective possible. Well, it's not more disgustingly poor than Bethesda's future prospects, which is everyone's getting fired already, as we know from previous leaks. And again, I don't think Todd Howard is long for this Bethesda lifestyle, okay? I think he's gonna go and have a little bit of a relaxing. I don't actually care where he goes as long as he's not any longer in Bethesda. I'm fine with whatever he does. Yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good.
And it's time to look at the very questionable future of Bethesda as a publisher of games, one that didn't really start out that way when you think about them originally. It was really just Bethesda Game Studios and that lovely Elder Scrolls franchise. But in the 2010s, Bethesda really solidified themselves, at least for people like me, as a publisher of fantastic video games. It hasn't been the case for a while now, a lot more hit and miss when it comes to publishing, and of course, the crown jewel of them all in Bethesda Game Studios is in a completely different spot than when we first knew.
I'm pretty sure it has literally been just miss after miss after Fallout 4. And some people would obviously say since Fallout 4. But yeah, it's been pretty much just misses for the past 10, 15 years.
Them as. But what I wanted to do today was gather with all of the looming Xbox news and talk about the future of Bethesda. What kind of value do they provide moving forward? And what should you be expecting as the axe is going to fall once more at Xbox? To get to all of that, I have to start at the beginning, so get cozy, and let's talk about Bethesda.
I sneezed.
As a kid, I always knew Bethesda as just Bethesda Game Studios. There was no difference between Bethesda and Bethesda Game Studios, but it really wasn't until 2014 that started to establish itself in my mind, because Bethesda started to become a lot more of a prominent publisher with games that really got my attention. Wolfenstein: The New Order and Evil Within were both dropping in the same year, and they were both games I adored. Before that, they were doing a great job too with things like Rage as well as Dishonored 1, but after 2014, they'd go on a really great stretch of everything from Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, I actually like that he said Dishonored 1 specifically, because Dishonored is a great franchise. It's a very fun and interesting world. It has a lot of lore. But yeah, there's also a Dishonored 2, which is a woke mess. And then there's Dishonored 3, which is a mega woke mess. Okay? Jesus Christ.
Fallout 4, and Doom 2016 to Dishonored 2, Prey, Dishonored Death of the Outsider, to Evil Within 2, and Wolfenstein 2. I just really loved the first-person.
The Wolfenstein franchise also has been completely squandered at this point.
Games that they were putting out there. Granted, there was a departure there from the first-person stuff in what the Evil Within was doing, but I was also having a great time with that. And frankly, it's hard to imagine how someone doesn't get jazzed up with that lineup, combined with the talent that Bethesda was putting up on display. You had Prime Todd Howard, who was considered one of the kings of the RPG genre up until
Prime Todd Howard. Oh no!
Till the 2010s. You had Shinji Mikami, who's the grandfather of survival horror video games. And you had Harvey Smith, who's one of the biggest legends in the immersive sim genre. And they're all these legends under the same respective publishing house, working on games, trading ideas. You could only imagine good things coming from that. However, after 2017, I felt like a lot of the good times slowed down, and by 2018 and on, it was a lot more sporadic. For every Fallout 76, which was a big stinker, of course, you got yourself a Doom Eternal, which is one of the best first-person shooters ever. But development timelines were increasing, so that slew of games I just mentioned was spread out over a much
Notice how he's not mentioning Doom the Dark Ages, because that was a quite big downfall.
larger stretch of time. For every Wolfenstein Youngblood you get something like Ghostwire Tokyo, like both very experimental titles. One
I'm pretty sure Wolfenstein Youngblood was an absolute disaster, okay? Wolfenstein Youngblood, this right here, is pretty much kind of almost the predecessor of Forspoken to a degree. And that is a wild thing to say.
Blood you get something like Ghostwire Tokyo, like both very experimental titles, one not playing to his studio's strength at all, the other clearly does. This sporadic approach to game publishing and experimenting, from everything between live service to really great single-player titles, was because Bethesda's single-player games were performing terribly on the market outside of a few. According to VG charts, Wolfenstein 2 sold 319,000 units in its first week at retail. Now keep in mind, this is when the industry had not fully pivoted over to about 90+% of purchases being made digitally. Physical still counted for something. And if that wasn't enough, Steam did have a data leak that revealed the total player counts, aka sales, for Wolfenstein among many other titles. Wolfenstein: The New Order, the first game in the series, had 1.8 million players, whereas even the standalone release of Old Blood, which granted was a bit cheaper, was at 600k. But ignoring all of that, the sequel only reached 549,000 players on Steam, and it would cost more to develop, something that would continue to be a trend for Bethesda, even with some of what I would consider their most stellar games so far, like Dishonored 2. Admittedly, this one on PC had a lot of performance issues, and it took the team a very long time
Dishonored 2, really now?
to patch them out, which resulted in sales lost. But to go from about 3.7 million sales of Dishonored 1 to a third of that in its sequel only 4 years later is pretty brutal. And the issues compounded a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, again, they completely... Dishonored 2 is probably one of the earliest examples of DEI and ESG scores taking a hold of a game. And by Dishonored 3, I mean, it was just a skin suit at best.
For Arcane specifically, when Bethesda was assessing the numbers and saw how much it cost to make Dishonored 2 versus something like Skyrim. Keep this stat in mind because we're going to come back to it later. But Dishonored 2 would fortunately eventually enjoy a bit of a recovery. But this made Bethesda overall more risk-averse, and as we know, this would become their undoing.
A lot of people, by the way, are wondering, what's the problem with Dishonored 2? I mean, there's witches, there's so much feminism propaganda, honestly, in it.
The trend of successful Bethesda games underperforming with their sequels would continue on with things like The Evil Within 2. Now granted, Evil Within 2 was a pretty big departure from the first game. While the first game was very much in line with something like Resident Evil and was a lot more scary, the second game was very Last of Us inspired, and I do think that was for the worse, but it was also trying to target key pain points in the feedback surrounding the game, like Sebastian not talking enough. Now I consider the first Evil Within an absolute masterpiece, and I feel like this would have been a great competitor to Resident Evil nowadays with the renaissance we've seen with survival horror. But while the first one hit 800,000 sales in its first week, the sequel only reached 211,000 players in retail. And you're seeing a trend set in here, which meant that reality had to set in for Bethesda. Bethesda Game Studios was not releasing games as often as they once did. We saw they would go from something like Morrowind to Oblivion, all the way to Fallout 3 in a 5-year span, and that just wasn't happening anymore. And because their games are taking a lot longer to make, the amount of guaranteed income that could buoy some of these underperformers in the Bethesda family literally couldn't happen anymore, but also every sequel, barring Doom, had gone horribly for Bethesda, and BGS was about to undergo their biggest experiment yet, which they needed time for, and that was, of course, the combination of Fallout 76 and Starfield, something that we'd only learned very recently in an interview with Kurt Coleman, that Bethesda's original plan was to do Elder Scrolls 6 immediately after Fallout 4, which probably would have been the right choice in hindsight.
Imagine that timeline where we don't get 76 and Starfield, but actually Elder Scrolls 6. A lot of people would prefer it, but honestly, considering how atrocious 76 was, and well, how atrocious Starfield is. I mean, honestly, couldn't Bethesda has a better chance of making a good Elder Scrolls games than that Bethesda? So we technically have dodged a bullet. And by the way, yes, if you're wondering, all of these conversations do literally end up with the 100% understanding that, yeah, it's better that Bethesda doesn't make an Elder Scrolls game.
More on that in a bit. As reality began to set in, Bethesda noted that their single-player games were doing bad, and they did what literally all the other publishers in gaming did, and that was chase the live service gold rush, and instead of waiting it out and doing what they had always done well and hoping the consumer will come back to them and adjusting their business practices, they went for recurrent revenue. Now, ironically, as a fun little note here,
It was the time when everyone was trying to make online game because World of Warcraft and whatnot was still somehow pumping.
all went down during Save Player One, which was a movement by Bethesda to, yes, promote single-player games. But don't get it twisted, because the same time they were putting this message out, they were marketing to you games like Fallout 76 and Wolfenstein Youngblood, while also greenlighting Redfall. It's perhaps one of the most hypocritical moves that
Redfall was a beauty. It's too bad it actually lived just as long as it did. I didn't even get a piece of that. Too bad. It was a disaster.
we've seen a video game publisher make, and I don't know if it was a sign of internal divide to try to rally the troops as Bethesda was losing talent because they were going down this live service route or whatever, but it was a bad look. To fast forward to 2026, we look at Bethesda now. Tango Gameworks is gone. They're now under Krafton. Arcane Austin is literally gone. They were dissolved a year after Redfall came out. Their mobile game push is mostly done, and Xbox is mandating Elder Scrolls and Fallout games from Bethesda Game Studios. So the question
Which is gonna probably end up hilariously.
lies in, is this Xbox's fault that Bethesda got this far from themselves where studios could not be saved, or is it Bethesda for greenlighting all these titles in the first place? Where does the line begin with creative freedom for a lot of these teams and end with what's necessary for the business? And I think ultimately what we're really wondering is, was what's happening with Bethesda nowadays, where we have another team in Arcane Leon in the talks to being shut down, which is another Bethesda studio being severely impacted by Xbox leadership, is this all avoidable? And I think the answer is, to some extent, actually, yes. The answer was in Bethesda's hands. They never really had to be forced, for example, to do more with Fallout and Elder Scrolls. Bethesda's avoidant behavior when it came to these franchises was born out of Todd Howard's desire to have people miss things. He wanted it where things were missing for a while, so it was exciting when they came back. And for a long time, I actually totally subscribed to this idea. I mean, it makes sense. I look at how I feel about things like Call of Duty, and I think even I would become indifferent to Fallout if it released at that sort of annualized clip. It's the same way something that I appreciate nowadays, like older Assassin's Creed games.
I actually saw the most genius comment in my last Bethesda video, okay? Someone said, how about we take Todd Howard and put him on Call of Duty, so Call of Duty comes out once every 15 years. Oh, that is a genius comment.
I was totally burnt out by. That said, I don't think anybody was really asking for that frequency from Bethesda, and ironically enough, Fallout 76 pretty much undoes everything Todd says about missing it, given how often we actually see that game. But it's become my belief that Bethesda truly does understand video game hype in a strong way, and weaponizes that to their advantage, which is why they want you to miss things. A game like Fallout 4 and its short...
Oh, that is cope. No. That is just Bethesda being purely incompetent. They don't understand hype. If they understood hype, they would never talk about shadow dropping. They would be promoting things until Kingdom Come.
Window between reveal and release truly did change the industry. That said, it also helped mask a lot of issues. I mean, look, I'm a perfect example. Go look at my launch review for Fallout 4. Tell me if you find any criticism. I'll wait. You already told me. Okay, look at the title. Come on. And to be frank, it works nowadays. I look at my relatively tame critiques of Oblivion Remaster where I said, hey, this is a pretty great game, but I feel like there's a lot of issues that are barring me from really feeling like this is a fulfilling moment as a Bethesda fan. And there were so many people tell me to shut up. And now, a year later, after the game's release, people are actually more willing to listen to what I had to say because the hype has worn down. What's the difference? The hype is gone, and that's all. So I understand a healthy dosage of waiting for something. Certainly that can be a lot of fun, is the anticipation of it all. But I think it's beyond that now, and more a deliberate choice alongside Bethesda Game Studios just figuring out what the hell they're doing. You also have to really take a good hard look at the IP management to really come to this deduction. Ignoring what Todd had to say, Elder Scrolls fans only got Elder Scrolls Blades, Castles, yes, 2 mobile games, Online, which I thought was great, and Oblivion Remastered.
Online didn't sound that bad for the moment it came out, but at this point, online is just waiting to be shut down. Again, we talked about this. If 76 was about to get shut down before the TV show, and online now is doing poorer than the 76 was, and it has less microtransactions, you know they're gonna shut it down. It's only a matter of time. 70 online, Elder Scrolls Online is getting canned at some point, probably in upcoming years.
Since the last mainline Elder Scrolls title. That is all since 2011 that you would get there. Oh, and a card game. Sorry, I almost forgot about Elder Scrolls Legends. That's legitimately awful management no matter how good these mainline titles are. Now, Fallout for me, of course, is like beating a...
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that, but I was never interested. I didn't even know that that's a Elder Scrolls thing.
horse, but it's worth repeating that Bethesda continue to straw 76 out to every showcase every year like there's something meaningful happening when they know what fans are actually waiting for, since the franchise is at its biggest thanks to the TV show. Now, to be objective, I don't think Bethesda Game Studios' sole responsibility within the Bethesda pantheon should be upholding these other franchises.
By the way, you know what we have never talked about? How actually dead the Fallout franchise is. Because the damage is fucking insane at this point. Honestly, I should do a video on that. How dead the Fallout franchise specifically is. Because we have 76, all of its updates that clearly no one cares about, the destruction of lore, the TV show, and everything. I mean, Fallout is a complete shell of what once made it actually popular in the first place. It's no longer about a wasteland surviving the apocalypse or anything. It's I don't even know what it is.
Franchises. But that said, there are things that could have been done naturally with partners that could serve as a good temporary solution to get some additional cash flow, please some fans, save some jobs, and bide some time to figure things out without really pressing any buttons. And no, fair listener, this is not the part where Maddie brings up, where's Fallout New Vegas 2, Bethesda? I'm actually looking back at Arcane. When Bethesda was assessing what they would consider a failure with Dishonored 2, they spent more money on that game. It resulted in less sales than something like Skyrim, which they spent less on, and Skyrim continues to sell until this day. So,
by the way, there's absolutely nothing to assess there. Spend more money, gain less sales is always a disaster. This is like just a modern day Twitter cope where people are saying, oh, yeah, it cost 100 million to make and it sold 20k copies, but that's a lot of people anyway. It's like, no, this is just insane levels of cope.
So my question is, how did it not dawn on Bethesda to go for more Elder Scrolls titles right there? You could have made the argument right.
Easy. The reason that they did not make many Elder Scrolls titles is because they were probably concentrated on making the microtransaction shop, aka the play. What's the mod thing called? They were concentrated in thinking about that primarily, and Skyrim was still selling good. So making something that it's the same as the GTA 5 situation. Why GTA 6 took so long? Not because it was in the oven for that period of time. It's because GTA 5 was making money. So is Skyrim. Why make a new entry in a game and crush the existing sales of something if you can just continue re-releasing annual updates or, special editions for 50 times or something like that? Why crush that money? It's good money, it's easy money, it's gonna work, and it does. It does. So why risk it?
Then and there that Arcane Leon should go on to make a Dark Brotherhood focused assassin game, building off what they did with Dishonored, but under the umbrella of a more lucrative, safer IP. That was literally the obvious choice with them right then and there. But what did they go on to do afterwards? Deathloop. To their credit, Deathloop did fine, it seems like. It had a lot of players, of course. It launched as a PS5.
I have no idea if this was good. By the way, again, players does not mean copies sold. But I imagine Deathloop was like, I don't know, 200 million budget-wise? So I don't know if 4 million copies sold is enough. I don't even know how much this sold for.
exclusive and on Steam as well, so we know a lot of those copies were sold, but it's been a while since we've seen Arcane pop up. This is why a lot of their future is hanging in the balance, because their titles have not historically had a ton of demand. So why didn't Bethesda put them under an IP that had a ton of demand? I'll always give them credit for believing in their team. Certainly when you look at the long-term support of something like Fallout 76 or Elder Scrolls Online, they definitely have no problem.
There was no long-term support of 76. 76 was not receiving any updates. Well, they got an update or two. But until the Fallout TV show dropped, 76 was not receiving updates. It was dead. They were literally going to close down that sucker.
Hanging with something and trying to fix it. But if you're looking at what Arcane did and going, wow, what an underperformance, if only there was a way to inject more Elder Scrolls into our audience when you literally have a faction tailor-made for a specific type of video game that one of your best studios can actually utilize. The answer is right there. So with this all in mind, why do live service despite these incredibly obvious ideas? It's time to cash out. Simply put, Xbox was starving for IP and Bethesda was going under. Bethesda could use their live products as selling points for everything from Game Pass to recurrent revenue, and Phil Spencer was emboldened and on a shopping spree. The rest is history. He spent a lot of money on this company. The people working at Bethesda got a lot of cash in turn. And so what Bethesda did was effectively pass on the Redfall baggage now to Xbox.
Okay, so first of all, this is completely not true. Skyrim has sold how many million copies? 10, 20 or something like that? And Skyrim most likely took 150 million to make, maybe less. I don't know about the deals. I don't know about that times pricing, but I'm assuming it was not even close to your typical modern AAA game that nowadays takes 250 million minimum. I think Skyrim was probably in the ballpark of 100 million to 150 million to make, maybe slightly less. I don't know. I don't know about those prices. So I'm kind of speaking outside from my behind here, but I assume I'm at least near. I'm near at least. We're lowest case scenario 80 million. I'll say that. And well, if you sell 10 million, 20 million copies of the game, and I don't know how much is it, like $50, $40, $60? Yeah, that's a lot of money. That is enough money to sponsor your studio for the next upcoming 10, 15 years, by the way. To make probably like 3 or 4 games, which is roughly the exact number that we saw. Interesting, is it now?
I'm not victimizing Xbox here, but let's go from the top again. Bethesda was pushing.
And by the way, I believe that because I think the numbers are obvious, at least in my case. I see the number. There's no way those. I fully believe that those are roughly the numbers. And why would Xbox? And this also explains that Xbox chose to not actually, put pressure on Bethesda to do things, because Bethesda had so much spare cash to work with. Bethesda wasn't something that needs to make something now to make money. They still had money in the bank, and probably still do to a degree, when Microsoft acquired them. Which means, well, Microsoft has no reason at that point to actually intervene with anything Bethesda's doing internally, because they're fine. Microsoft's not losing money on them. They're not maybe making money per se as much, but they're not losing any, and they're stacked for the next couple of upcoming projects. All's good.
Redfall in this direction, and it truly cost them the entire wealth of talent that had built Prey. Keep in mind, the prior game from the same team that gave you Redfall was Prey, one of the most celebrated modern immersive sim titles. 70% of the talent that made that game had left during the development of Redfall. So Bethesda hard cost that franchise, and either Xbox wasn't told, didn't care, or didn't do their research. And it almost feels like the latter, thanks to leaked emails during the Activision FTC trial, where Phil Spencer calls the gap between December 2021 and all of 2022 a disaster situation, with May 2023 being their, quote, next big release, end quote. And that was Redfall. It was a release born out of complete desperation that likely was canceled in any other situation. Mind you, again, I'm not pitying Xbox here. I'm merely highlighting how cursed this project truly was from the start, and it really does go down to the root of Bethesda greenlighting it, and Xbox not doing better by the talent that was there, who, by the way, reportedly wanted the project canceled. So Xbox did what made sense to them. The game was awful, and most of the talent that made that team worth keeping was already gone when they had purchased them, so they shut them down. And I always wish they could have reinvested in that team and helped them rebuild and kind of rebrand themselves, because Harvey Smith was still at the head of that team at that point, and he is absolutely a legend in the industry that I think could have put something better out if he was working to a more single-player immersive sim title. To revisit the deal itself between Xbox and Bethesda, as many of you know, I didn't really hate the deal at the time. Some of Bethesda games...
Oh my god, look at this absolutely fucking hellish lineup. Modern day Dishonored, modern day Fallout, modern day Doom. Ray is what's the combat game? This was actually really good. I'm not, but they ruined it slowly, and there's no follow up to this. For Honor, actually good game. Not sure what this is. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Don't know what this is. A flight sim, Senua's Saga, Halo. Not sure what this is. Gears of War, Minecraft, and Forza, I think. Dude, this is a hellish lineup. All the things that used to be good are just bad now. And, well, everything else is just bad and bad.
I didn't really hate the deal at the time. Some of Bethesda Game Studios' best work, like Morrowind or Oblivion, was born out of making exclusive games, and naively, I thought that stability would return them to form so they could focus less on games like 76 and make Starfield truly memorable. And at this same time, I think the benefit could extend to the wider Bethesda family, who needed that stability even more. Bethesda Game Studios was always going to be fine. It was a lot of the others I was worried about. It felt like everything from Wolfenstein 3 to Evil Within 3 was possible now, because Xbox would lock these sequels down as exclusives in an attempt to push more people to their console, and obviously, as we know, that never came to pass. Now, despite this situation, and maybe even to Xbox's credit, on paper that is, for not bossing their developers around, they continue to truck on with Bethesda as is, and they ended up giving away Tango, who delivered one of the best games of the generation just a year prior, and Arcane Austin was promptly shuttered. So what remains in looking ahead? You have Arcane Lyon, who frankly hangs in the balance. They made Deathloop at the start of this generation, and we're still waiting on Blade, which a lot of people were getting concerned about when it did.
Oh man, Blade is gonna be so unbelievably bad. I haven't talked about this, but it is very clear that Blade's gonna be bad. So, the movie Blade is insanely fucked already. I mean, it's Blade. A guy killing vampires. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And they don't want that, okay? They want to make Blade about not killing vampires, and it's gonna be his daughter that takes over. And the game is gonna be something along those lines also, potentially? Oh boy, I wish we never get Blade, honestly. It's just too much.
Didn't make an appearance at the latest Xbox Summer Showcase. id Software is about to launch Doom: The Dark Ages Revelations in July, which they've described as an entirely new game. Now, looking at the numbers here, Alinea Analytics...
Is this gonna actually work? I don't think this is gonna work. Doom is just... Everyone loved the Doom gameplay. It was great. Please bring back Serious Sam. It was a great franchise. I loved it. It was very fun. It was very a fun shooter. Okay, everyone remembers that map where you got put into the giant empty arena, and then there were just mobs spawning from each mobs going at you from each part, and then there was the bulls that knocked you around. It was great. It was great. Serious Sam was great. Okay, but we're not getting that anymore. We're getting garbage like Wolfenstein and Doom, the whatever fuck, which is zoomified to an unbelievable degree.
which is a source that...
And by the way, the logic here is just insane, honestly, in my opinion. Think about it. Think about it. This is how they're making these games. This is what they did to Doom. You have Doom, a franchise that many people loved and was successful because a certain group of people loved it. They take it and then they turn it into something new that doesn't have an audience. and does not appeal to the previous people who made the franchise great in the first place. Like, why? Why do they keep doing this?
I do trust, because while they are estimates, they are fairly close to the actual mark. And frankly, if these companies have an issue with us using estimates, then they should provide the number.
Like, I did this. Look at this. This is the newest Doom, right? This is so shit. Like, look at this. Here's red. Red's bad. Green is good. Why? It's such a like. Can you not treat me like I have 40 IQ or something?
And frankly, if these companies have an issue with us using estimates, then they should provide the numbers themselves. However, their estimates suggest that Doom the Dark...
Like, seriously, look at this demon.
...with us using estimates...
Look at this demon. Oh, he's on a tricycle, whatever it's called. Oh, unibike. I mean, oh my god, this is... like, it's just bad.
Then they should provide the numbers themselves. However, their estimates suggest that Doom the Dark Ages hit roughly 800,000 sales in a week, and the other two...
And the layout of this is just Zoomer heaven. Like, look at this.
Estimates suggest that...
Okay, see? They're just all put in that ball so you can AoE them at once. Oh!
Doom the Dark Ages hit roughly 800,000 sales in a week, and the other 2.2 million people who hopped on this game played it via Game Pass. Even with $70 per game considered here, it's hard to imagine this was enough after spending 5 years working on this game and another full year of working on DLC. Machine Games is likely working on Wolfenstein 3 if a leak is to be trusted by Kotaku, who corroborates a suggestion by Windows Central Gaming. This arrives after Indiana Jones reached about 5 million players, of which Alinea Analytics suggests was mostly thanks to Game Pass.
Yeah, no one played this. The Indiana Jones thing was a disaster. Did it... How many players were there on Steam? I forgot. 3K or 27K? I can't remember. It's either the number 2 or 30. I know, it's quite the margin, but you need to understand how bad this is.
Similar situation to Doom. 6 days after the game's launch on PS5, it sold about 117,000 copies, and over 300,000 of the total copies sold came from Steam, which Alinea Analytics does expect to outpace PlayStation's version on the long run because of wishlist conversions on Steam. Now, as for Wolfenstein, this would be the first time the franchise returns since 2019, and it's actually hard to say where it will land, but I'm feeling a bit optimistic about it. Yes, Youngblood was absolutely terrible, but I do think there is hunger for this series to come back in a big way on the way we knew it and we loved it. The question is if they do a 3 all these years later, or something else like a reboot maybe. I ask this because the choice to do more Wolfenstein over Indiana Jones can be seen risky, but also you no longer have the licensing fee, and on top of that, there is a Wolfenstein TV show in production. Xbox recently spoke with Entertainment.
Oh Jesus, a Wolfenstein TV show. That is gonna be peak cringe. Everyone's gonna be on the side of not the... Oh no. Dude, everything he's saying is just a disaster.
Entertainment Weekly, citing how excited they are about Hollywood taking on games, and to be frank, I'd argue outside of Bethesda Game Studios that Machine Games is...
Yeah, I'm also excited on Hollywood taking on games. The Witcher TV show, right? The Fallout TV show, the Halo TV show. Such great successes, such absolute wonderful things. No, it's shit. It's bad. It's sad. What are we doing?
Most likely the most safe within the Bethesda family because they have a chance of making Wolfenstein absolutely enormous and subsequently boosting the franchise. It's also a show that's being
even the leftists are not gonna watch this.
Produced by the same team that develops the Fallout TV show, so there's an extended partnership here as well. There's also ZeniMax Online Studios who's kicking on here, and they were quietly working on Project Blackbird, but now they are an Elder Scrolls Online factory. And to be frank, I haven't played Elder Scrolls Online in a while, so it's hard for me to say with confidence how to feel about the new seasonal model that they've undergone. However, it looks like a lot of players are pretty happy thus far based on comments.
Nope.
Reddit threads and so on I've read, because they think ZeniMax Online...
Oh yeah, Reddit threads. Oh boy.
Is just really listening to them. However, it really goes without saying here, but I feel bad for the team because this is all they get to be for a long while. Project Blackbird was their one chance of evolving into something more, and I think more importantly for the team there, something that is theirs. And it'll probably go down as Phil Spencer's worst game cancellation, of which he, like any other Xbox boss, oversaw many. I mean, you look at the dismal state of Destiny and how there really isn't a fill-in anywhere in the market, and Xbox quite literally, if reports are to be believed, had that in their hands and canceled it because they decided to fund projects from the likes of Compulsion, Double Fine, Ninja Theory, which underperformed, alongside some projects like State of Decay 3 or Fable, which they've taken massive bets on. And if a report from the
Fable cannot exceed. Check yesterday's video. It's gonna be bad.
information is to be trusted, Bethesda Game Studios is pushing on to only Fallout and Elder Scrolls territory, which likely leaves Starfield in the dust, but I don't think there's much to be said about this one. The post-launch support for Starfield has been, frankly, not great at all. You look at Shattered Space, which is
Not great at all. What do you mean? What do you mean? Update with 3 bug fixes, 5 lighting fixes, and nothing else once half a year is not enough support. What do you mean it's not enough support? That's more than it deserves.
one of the worst things Bethesda Game Studios has ever done, and Terran Armada only doubles down on what Starfield was doing before, resulting in
Terran Armada 1 quadruples down on Emil Pagrolino's vision for whatever the hell type of shrooms he's eating. And even more, Terran Armada is worse than Shattered Space. And Shattered Space was already absolutely abysmal. Abysmal. Terran Armada is literally 2 hours long if you rush it. A normal person, if he's actually fast doing the Radiant quests, is going to finish Terran Armada in 2 to 3 hours easy. If you have a strong build and whatnot. It's like, no question. There's barely any dialogue, but there's barely anything. It is bad. It is unbelievably bad, in fact.
pretty mediocre sales on PlayStation 5 because the game got destroyed for...
Yeah, this was hilarious. They also refunded people. This was absolute humiliation ritual in the finest.
multiple years. Bethesda kept the game as is because the amount of time and money that would have been spent overhauling that game would have significantly delayed the likes of Elder Scrolls and Fallout, which they know fans want more of. I think this mandate from Xbox...
Oh yeah, sure. The games that don't exist and probably are not even being made currently got delayed. Wow.
also puts the kibosh on any sort of hypothetical Starfield 2. But also, this turns Bethesda Game Studios into the very thing that in 2016 they said they wouldn't be. There's a quote from Pete Hines around this time where he's defending Bethesda's decision on Elder Scrolls 6 potentially being a ways off. Specifically, he talks about how they're not a vending machine with a Fallout button and an Elder Scrolls button. And would you look at what Xbox is turning them into? So, looking at the future of Bethesda,
people want them to be an Elder Scrolls and vending machine. People want a Fallout vending machine. That's what people care about. I actually, until this point, I forgot that Bethesda owns half the stuff he said because it's just irrelevant. People know Bethesda for two things, and none of them are Starfield. Okay? And we just want those two things. It's that simple. It's the same way that people from Blizzard want World of Warcraft and Diablo. And Starfield's kind of like there, but not really there at this point. No one even cares that Blizzard makes a new game at this point. People just want two things, Diablo and World of Warcraft from them. Same with Bethesda. I don't care if they make something new. I have seen what they make. And it's Starfield, and that's not good. So, I just want more of the same. Thank you very much, and I will maybe be happy. In any case, that was Mr. Matty Plays 10 out of 10. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.